All right, hi guys, Adam here. So to start off this series, I guess the first thing we need to think about is data organization, similar to the Ultimate Team Performance Dashboard series. And maybe we want to do some calculations off of these metrics. For example, maybe I want to have a total readiness score that aggregates the stress, sleep quality, energy, muscle soreness, and confidence. And I'm going to do that now. By inserting a column into my table, that's one important thing to mention is that these are tables. So if I click on this and I go to table design, this is the name of this table. And the way that I created the table, let me just take a step back here. I'm going to delete this column. I'm going to click on the cell A1, hold down Control and click A. I'm going to convert this to a range right here. Now, there is no more table design when I click on these cells because it is no longer a table. The way that I make it a table is I can click on cell A1, hold down Control and click A. That's just to select everything in this sheet pretty much. And I'm going to go to Insert, Table, and the headers are on the top, so I'm going to keep that checked. My table has headers. Click OK. And now when I click inside it, when I click outside it, I don't see the table design. When I click inside it, I do see the table design. This is a table now. In Excel terms, I'm going to change the column width back to something smaller. And now we're going to go about creating our formula. So I'm going to click in here, insert. Now we have a new column in our table. And what I always do with this is I always move calculations to the end. And this is for a variety of reasons, mostly with the biggest one being that if you want to add a new item or you want to copy and paste this somewhere else, that the calculations aren't affected by that. So one other thing I like to do is I like to color code this so that I know it's a calculation. So I know that that's a calculation. And I'm going to call this, let's now call column run, I'm going to call it readiness score. Now, when I click on the column header, it's called readiness score. One thing that I really like in tables that you're going to see in a second here is it makes things really easy to organize. So I'm going to say equals to calculate this readiness score. There are a couple ways to do it. I'm going to do it this way. Equals at stress. This is one of the benefits of the tables. When I click on this cell, it tells me what it is. Instead of saying M1 or D2, I want that plus that plus that. And keep on going through. That's one way to do it. And then I should have readiness score for each day. Now, what if someone doesn't fill out this information or only fills out a couple of the scores? Well, that's going to be a problem with this readiness score calculation. So we can add in a couple of criteria to accommodate for that. I'm going to do if, open bracket, or, and say stress equals blank, comma, sleep quality equals blank, comma, and I'm just going to keep it going. Energy equals blank, muscle soreness equals blank, or confidence equals blank. And I close off the parentheses. So I'm saying if any of these things are true, comma, then I want the readiness score to be blank. If that's not true, then I want to take the sum or just add all these things together. If I click enter, after I close my parenthesis, that should work. Now, if I change this confidence value that was a 10 to blank, there is no readiness score for that day. And if we did create a readiness score for that day, it may misrepresent the results because this confidence level isn't actually 0. So we don't know what it is, and maybe we just want to remove that piece of information for that day. So type 10 back in. Now, one thing that I like to add with all my formulas, just in case, is I do something called if error. before the first if, I'm gonna type if error open parenthesis. And now what this is saying is, if there's an error in anything going on here, what do I want it to do? I'm gonna do comma, and I'm gonna do blank. So if there is an error with anything going on in my formula, I want it to be blank instead of display an error value. Okay, so now we have our readiness score with 5 items scaled to 10, so it's out of 50 points. I'm going to add another column because one other important metric that I want to calculate is SRPE, which is RPE, rating of perceived exertion. Again, we're going from 0 to 10 here, multiplied by the duration in minutes of the session. Again, I'm going to color code this red, and I'm going to name this SRPE. And I'm going to do equals RPE times duration. Click enter. Now, if I remove this RPE value, it's going to be 0. Well, I don't want that because I don't know what this RPE was. It may not actually be 0, but if it's not there, I don't want it to indicate 0 because then again, it could misrepresent the information. So I'm going to accommodate for that in my formula by the same way that I did in the readiness score. I'm going to say if or RPE equals blank, comma, duration equals blank, close it off, comma, then if either of these two things are blank, I want this to be blank. If that's not true, comma, then I want RPE times duration. I'm going to click enter, or after I close the parentheses again for the if statement. And now, if I remove this 10, someone didn't fill it out, now this is blank, and it's easier not to include this in our data set. Now, I'm going to do the if error again here. If error, so if there's an error with any of this stuff, let's make it blank and close that out. So now we have a couple aggregated measures from this data set, and we may manipulate those in our visualizations. And now the last thing that I want to do in this video is I want to combine data sets, right? We have performance testing in one sheet. And actually, let me take a second here and just say, this makes sense from a data organization perspective. You don't necessarily want to collect something that you're collecting once every couple weeks in the same spreadsheet that you're collecting things on a daily basis within. Notice we have 1019, 1018, 1020. Whereas in our performance testing, we have 1020, 11.3. It doesn't really make too much sense to collect those things in the same spreadsheets. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull in the information from this sheet into this one. And we're also going to pull in something really important from here, which is the positional group of the athletes into this one as well. So we can think of this daily monitoring sheet as kind of our hub of information that we're mostly going to be referring to in our data visualizations. So now what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to insert a couple columns here. And if you don't have to right click and insert every time, you can select multiple, just so you know. I click on O, I hold down Shift, click M, right click, insert, and it'll insert a bunch at once. I don't need all these columns, but I created them anyways for now. And I'm going to call this just position. We'll do the position first. Now, I'm going to use, there are a couple different ways to do this. I'll show you both of them, but one I advise to do more than the other. So, the first we're going to go over is a new one in new Microsoft Excel versions. It's called XLOOKUP. So I'm going to type in equals XLOOKUP. If you're familiar with VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP functions from older Excel versions, then you'll be a little bit more familiar with this. The first thing that it's asking for is a lookup value. And in this case, we just have one. So, and that's the name, because I want to pull the position group. Let me exit out for a second. We want to get the position group for each person's name. So I'm going to go equals XLOOKUP name, Now it's looking, and then it's gonna, when I do a comma, it's gonna ask me for a lookup array. Well, where am I gonna find this name? And I'm gonna tell it. There are two ways to do this. I'm gonna do both. So I'm probably gonna X out of this formula again. Is I can go to the player profiles table and select all my names. And notice what happens. These are all tables, by the way. So you know that you've selected everything that you need to select when this here turns into something, when that turns into something that makes sense. So I'm going to go to player profiles. So keep on going down. Notice it doesn't really make sense yet. Okay, I got all my table profile names. And then it's asking me after I do a comma, now what do you want to return? Well, what I want is the position. So the other way to do this, I'm not going to select the position from here. I can just type in PBL, that's the name of my table. PBL underscore profile is the name of my table, profile, and I'm going to do an open square bracket. Now I have all the items in my table. I could type them in directly, like if I type in POS, it'll filter it down, or I can just double click on it and it fills out. Close the square bracket, close the parenthesis, and I'm going to click enter. And now I have the position for every person for every day, which is fine. Some people might not have access to this formula. And another way to do it is using index and match. I'm going to do that one too, for those that are familiar with that one. Both of them will work and there will be no issues. So I'm going to type in equals index. Similarly, it's asking me for an array. But this time it's working opposite. It's now, what do I want to put in this cell? What array or what do I want in this cell? I want the position. So I'm going to type in PBL underscore profile. That's where my positions are. Square bracket. And I'm going to select position and do comma match. Open parenthesis. So now it's saying, well, okay, I get it. You want the position. Now, how do we know whose position is whose? We need to match this up to something. It's asking me for a lookup value, similar to XLOOKUP. The name, so I want to match it to the name of the person. Okay, so where am I going to find the names to match this up to? I'm going to type comma, and I'm going to do this the other way again, where I go into player profiles and select all the names. Now I'm going to click comma, and now it's asking me for a match type. Less than, exact match, or greater than, just an exact match to that name is fine. I'm going to go parenthesis, parenthesis to close it off, and I'm going to click enter. And notice every person has a position for every day. So either of those things are going to work. What I like to do with all my formulae, and I'm going to do it again, is the if error. So if there's an error with this index match combination, comma, blank. Okay, so you can use either way. They'll both be fine. And now, what did we say that we wanted? We wanted to get our performance testing data. Trap bar, deadlift 1 RM, bench press 1 RM, jump height, body fat. This is going to be a little bit more complicated, and the reason why I use index match and XLOOKUP in this formula is because we're working with words or text strings. The way that I normally like to do things, if I can, is use average ifs or sum ifs to get non-text string data or number data. So I'm going to type in, what do we have here? I'm just going to highlight all these cells up here, right click, copy them, go back into my daily monitoring, right click, and I'm going to do paste special, the values. That's what that one is. Click, or just click on that. And now I pasted the values, of these, which are just the header titles, into here. So, all right, trap bar, deadlift, 1 RM, pounds. Now let's get that information. I'm going to do equals average ifs. Now it's asking me for an average range. This is essentially saying, what average do you want to go in these cells? Well, PBL underscore performance, It's a different table, right? If I go to the profile table and do an open bracket, that's a different table. There's no performance data in there. So let me backtrack a little bit. Performance, open square bracket. All right, I see what I need. Trap bar deadlift, 1 RM pounds. Close that square bracket. So I'm getting the average of that. Now, if what? If what is true? I'm going to do a comma. The criteria range would be, in this case, the name of the person, right? I don't want the trap bar deadlift average for all people to go in each of these rows. I just want the trap bar deadlift average for this person. And even more than that, I don't want it just for this person. I only want it to show up on the date in which they had their trap bar deadlift test, if you will, or that data was captured. So we have two considerations to make. The first is name. So the first criteria range, we're going to use name. And it's important to use the same table that we did before. So I'm going to do, we want the average of the trap bar deadlift 1 RM if table performance, name, if the name of whoever is in there, comma, is equal to this name, whatever name is in this same row. Also, when table TBL underscore performance 8, comma, is equal to whatever date is in this row. And I am going to close the parenthesis and click enter. All right, I got a lot of errors. The reason for that is because, or well, why do you think it is? Well, there are no performance data for the trap bar deadlift on this date. And that's why if I use the if error function, which we'll see in a second, all these errors will go away and it won't be so ugly. And it won't mess up calculations. But if I scroll down, oh, all right, I start seeing some numbers here. 10/20/2017, Luke Skywalker, 541. Let's go to our performance testing. 10/20/2017. Where is he? I can't find him. Luke Skywalker. Or did I have the wrong guy? That's 395. Oh, sorry, Superman. Superman, 541, 10/20/2017. Superman, 541, 10/20/2017. All right, so it's working. Now I'm going to apply this if error stuff. So if there's an error in this formula, comma, let's make it blank. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this formula and paste it in these other cells. And I'm going to make one minor change to each of them. So paste that in. Now you'll notice when I scroll down, it's going to be exactly the same. And now I'm going to say, you know what? Instead of trap bar deadlift, when these things are true, I want to get the bench press when these things are true. I'm going to click enter. Now if I scroll down, again, these numbers are going to be different because now they're bench press numbers. And I'm just going to copy it again, paste it over. Now we're on jump height. Now instead of bench press, I want to get jump height. Enter. Copy that over, paste in the body fat. Now instead of jump height, I want to get body fat. And click enter. Okay, so looks like we've got some body fats, jump heights, and maybe we want jump heights in decimals. One easy way to do that is to select this here, select the whole column, and change this data format to number, and we're going to get 2 decimals. Well, it looks like everyone had an even number of jump height anyways, but not all the time. So and then I'm going to click this here, which removes a 0, decrease the decimal, and now we should have jump height to 1 decimal. Like that. Great. So maybe I'm going to make these 2 numbers also, and I'm going to remove the 2 decimals so that they're just in plain values or whole numbers. Great. And body fat, look at how many decimals that has. Maybe we just want to make it 1 also. So I just changed it to number, remove 1 of the decimals. Now our formatting looks pretty good. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add something called ones. This is for formula consistency, and it's very beneficial for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. I created another column. I'm moving this column over. This column's at the end. I'm going to call it ones. And the whole purpose of this column is to put the number 1 in every single cell, no matter what. Now, participation in training is pretty close. We got a lot of ones, Oh, that guy didn't participate in training someday. So that's not going to work. And the way that I do this ones is you just pick something that always exists in the data set for every row. We're never going to have an instance where a name is not in a row for a date. I know that. I know that about my data set. And you can pick something about yours. So I'm going to say equals if name, if this is blank, or equals blank, then blank. But if not, let's make it the number 1. There are a lot of different ways to do this, but this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to click enter. Now there should be a 1 in every single row, because a name will never be blank. I'm going to change it to just a normal one. And I'm going to do the if error again, just because it's part of my routine. So if there's an error in this formula, comma, let's make it blank. Great. So now we have this robust table with the formulas that we need and all the information that we need on a daily basis to start making our visualization. This is our plan. Once again, if you didn't see the last video, we want an athlete headshot, some profile information, injury statuses, and a variety of readiness KPIs and graphs over time. Same thing with performance KPIs and graphs over time. I'm just going to create a new sheet. I'm going to call it data viz. And in the next video, we'll get started on this. Thanks for watching.